Hey, it's me, Rob Ryan. I am back with, wow, that's all I have to say. I always say that I am back with another incredible, amazing, fantastic conversation with an entrepreneurial thinker here on the next episode of Entrepreneurial Thinkers. But I got to tell you, today was a wow conversation that you are going to want to tap into. I don't care where your interests lie on the spectrum of entrepreneurial economies and entrepreneurial thinking. You're going to want to tap into this because you will find something that will feed your soul and energize you, no matter where you are on the planet and what it is that you're working on. So I got the pleasure to sit down after a long courtship of trying to get this guest, Amiah Sheppard, onto our show. We got to sit down and we got to talk all things Los Angeles' entrepreneurial economy, USC, one of the world's greatest private universities right here in the heart of our city, and what it's doing through its Greif Center of Entrepreneurial Studies, and storytelling and pitch coaching, which Amiah is a literal qualified expert in through her Sheppard Consulting group. I love storytelling and how storytelling weaves into all of our lives, but especially into the lives of entrepreneurs. And I have, as I evidenced by the shirt I'm wearing today, proudly #LongLA for those listening on audio only. You know how much passion and deep love I have for our city here, as does Amiah, a native Angelino, and grew up and born and raised in Inglewood. So super excited, super grateful. There's so much in this show that you will enjoy and learn from and be inspired by. I really do hope that you enjoy experiencing it as much as she and I did making it for you.
We are so grateful to be supported by these community champions: Sales MD, Team Friday, Realist Lab, Kiana Patterson, Diego Chavez, Jer Boucher, Heather Ryder, Janine Sua, Lily Roca, and Steve Kernan.
Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back, or welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. Might be your first time with us. If it is your first time with us, then you'll know that this is the show where I get to have weekly conversations with some of the best and brightest entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors and segments of society and industry as we come together conversationally in hopes that we try to leave the world a little bit better than we found it when we're done. And today I have no doubt we are going to do exactly that, because we are excited to be joined. This was a long time in the making, folks. We're excited to be joined by my friend Amiah Sheppard, who is the Senior Student Engagement Programs Advisor at USC's Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies, and she's a pitch coach extraordinaire, which we're going to talk about both sides of her life in today's episodes. She is part strategist, storyteller, program leader, and a shining light within her LA communities. See, she doesn't just coach founders on how to pitch or how to build their ideas into businesses. She helps young leaders to find their best stories within themselves, and then she shows them how to tell that story. From venture capital to cultural innovation, she's raised the bar for underrepresented founders across the globe, helping them raise more than $70 million in venture money. She uses her role within the Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies at USC to help propel their most promising entrepreneurs as she builds her own network through Sheppard Consulting Group. She built up her venture industry chops via firms like Outside VC and Backstage Capital, and she's been a leader via various organizations in our Los Angeles community. To me, she's a modern day Angelino. She is dynamic, she's ever evolving, she's smart, she's passionate, and she's an empathetic leader who really values people over everything else. So buckle in so that we can explore what's going on campus down there at USC and across LA as Amiah helps us spot some of our city's best young entrepreneurial thinkers and talk about how we can propel LA even further ahead on the global stage. My friend, it's a long LA day here on the Entrepreneurial Thinkers podcast. So thank you and welcome, Amiah. Welcome to the show. It's great to see you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is one of my favorite introductions ever, and I've spoken on so many stages. So thank you so much, Rob.
My pleasure. It's good to see you. For those that are going to be watching this on our YouTube channel, you'll see she is comfortably sat in some cool room there, a co-working space at the USC Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies on campus at USC. For those that are listening, I just painted you the visual picture. That's what she looks like and where she's sitting. So we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk a ton about USC because I'm really curious about USC and what's going on there from an entrepreneurial standpoint. And you literally are like the ringmaster. You're pulling the strings and you're helping a lot of other talented people on your team and people that you work for to really, really stimulate that community entrepreneurially. And so I want to hear more about that. But I also want to make sure we're going to get in and talk a little bit about LA, but we're also going to talk a lot about just your work as a pitch coach and kind of the queen of storytelling in my mind, because I really want to, I am a storyteller, as you know, and I'm deeply passionate about the importance of everybody, but entrepreneurs especially, learning how to tell their best story their best way. And so I've been excited for us to have a chance to kind of just chop it up on stuff that we really, really love to talk about. But first things first, I've got kind of a big generic question for you to get started. I've been really lucky. I've had folks on this show from the UCLA entrepreneurial programs. I've had guests on the show from ASU, which, by the way, I'm an Arizona State guy, from Arizona campus originally. But I've had folks on the show from the Arizona State University California campus there in downtown. And that's all great. But like now, today, I really want to know what's going on down in Exposition Park on the USC campus when it comes to building the next generation of our city's entrepreneurs. Like what are you all up to down there?
It is some really fun and charged up energy. They like to call it locked in. The students they have access to so much information, and they've been putting it into play at the best like areas we've ever even thought of because of the information that we have, right? We have access to the best professors who in our department, Greif Center is actually the oldest entrepreneurship department in the whole country. So our professors aren't just thought leaders, but they are actual entrepreneurs. We have the big Trojan network that is really reputable. And I went to Columbia in New York City, but honestly, the Trojan network in LA is so strong and it is global. But another thing is that we give out the most money on campus for entrepreneurial students. And that is the thing that charges them up, yes, for an outcome, but they're just been excited to build and build and build because we have so many activities and opportunities such as pitch practice. We're doing a 5-day hackathon right now. We participate in tech week. There's so much stuff. So the energy is excited because we are in the fourth biggest GDP in the whole world, but we're concentrated in such an urban area where the students are not just learning and thinking but they also have the opportunity to put what they're building into play in our local community, which happens to be such a huge stage. So
Right.
I've been seeing such great progress from my inside of the Launchpad, which I run, to literally to my Twitter timeline where I'm like, no, that's the USC founder in our like network, not just in USC. So it's been some fun energy.
That's really cool. I mean, I love that neighborhood. I just love that area for a whole bunch of different reasons. I'm a big soccer fan, and so I love Angel City, and so I go to BMO and I watch Angel City matches occasionally when I can. I just love the Exposition Park as a whole. Like I love the Rose Garden across from the entry to campus. I'm also a big public transit guy, so I take the subway everywhere and I walk everywhere. So like honestly, sometimes like on a long day or a weekend, like I'll just take the subway down and like hang out in the Rose Gardens, right? Or go to the museums. My daughter and my now brand new almost 1-year-old grandson, they took me to the museum campus and to different museums for my birthday back in June. So I love that. And then I had the good fortune. I hadn't been on campus at USC for couple years, maybe 2 years since like an event there. And then one of my nieces, as she's getting ready, she's in her beginning of her senior year now in high school down in Orange County, and USC is one of the schools she's considering, and she'll probably apply to, right? And so I happened to be home, and her mom brought her and her sister up, and they were like, "Hey, Uncle Rob, you want to come meet us for the campus tour at USC?" And I was like, "Sure." Like any chance to like hang out and have lunch and like see the girls up from Orange County. And I got to tell you, like I was really like going on the tour and getting into some of the buildings and hearing the pitch. I was fascinated by it. Like I was really excited to hear and learn more about what's going on. And they didn't even really talk about the entrepreneurial stuff, but just talking about all the different programs and the colleges. Something you just said made me think real quickly is or do the folks, the kids that are coming through your programs there, like I would assume this, but please tell us about it. Like they're applying their entrepreneurial ideation and their entrepreneurial thinking, as I would say, to like things inside of, say, the engineering school, or things inside of the media school, or things inside of the, I don't know, geology and science research. Like, are they like seeing problems and opportunities inside the main schools that they're studying in? Or are they like, that's just like extra, and then they're thinking about like traditional stuff out in the broader economy when it comes to entrepreneurship?
So what's really interesting about our approach is that we really do center our ecosystem into being problem solvers.
Okay.
And thinking about impact. So yes, while they come from all the different schools, because at the Greif Center, we support those who went to USC, work at USC, or go to USC in any capacity. So any school, that knowledge is like their knowledge base, but they're so creative that they are applying that information to the other verticals and fields that are really out there.
Okay.
And that's what we encourage because of our connections to real life experts. So they get inspired like, oh, yes, I'm learning this this framework or this idea, but here goes a real world application to it that you can do right now.
Right. And I think that's so important. That actually leads me, you're a great podcast guest. That leads me to my next question. Right. So you've been there for a few years now, right? And you didn't come from a university employee background. Like you weren't working in university entrepreneurship. Like there are some people, that's their whole career, right? You came from the private sector. You came from exposure to venture capital. But now that you've been on campus inside of a university entrepreneurship program for a few years, like, why do you think, if you could, why do you think universities in particular are such important pieces of any city trying to build like a vibrant entrepreneurial economy?
No, that's a great question. And I think LA is primed to answer it because we are, I like to say, the most collaborative ecosystem. At the same time, though, because students have this unique access, they're excited to just do stuff at like just different rates that possible. And when I was doing non-student entrepreneurs, it was like we're competing against their jobs and their families, right? And not that the student entrepreneurs don't have those things, but those things plus school, right? At one of the hardest universities in the world, right?
Yeah.
So we're competing against a lot more, but at the same time, it's such a self-selecting industry and calling where we just get people who come back, right? So it's not necessarily about, you exit your company at the end of your 4 years. Like our goals are different. Our goals is, did you learn the skills of entrepreneurship? Did you try to build something? Did you learn what that feels like? And are you analytical enough to make the next move for better or for learning or for growth, right?
So you're getting like the kids who are undergrad or graduate student, like they're in more experimental mode because they are young and because they are students. They're studying for a living, right? Like you said. But then you're also getting the grads, the people that have moved on to the world, the network, as you say, that are coming back. And I imagine like they're coming back maybe sometimes with their own projects, but then they're also coming back like as mentors or as instructors or even probably as donors or benefactors. So So to me, like what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing it correctly, is like any city anywhere trying to build an entrepreneurial, like a vibrant entrepreneurial economy, like if you don't have universities at the hub of what you're trying to do, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. If you do have universities in your community, which most bigger cities do, that's a great place for what I'm hearing you say. Like that's a great, very natural place to experiment and teach.
And one thing I want to mention about USC Marshall and Greif Center, our alumni have access to all of our funding forever. So one thing about like if with and without university fund or without university impact, that funding piece and that place that you can always go back to, that community piece, is something that alumni founders are severely underutilizing. I'm always like, literally, like, I give away money. Like, we give away money to alums, not just students. But have you asked your own university where you're
Right.
from? And even if it's not university, right? It's community college, it's the small business organizations, like utilizing those resources. And I think the universities center as a microcosm of all the different resources available in LA and, you know, your resources. But if you don't start by navigating here, or I think it's more helpful to start by practicing navigating in our microcosm before you go out to everything and it's even more.
It just makes a lot of sense.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Shore Capital. In today's venture capital world, it's not just about cash. It's about relationships. Capital is harder to find, limited investors have fewer managers that they can trust, and the industry is just filled with far too much hype. Shore Capital is an early-stage venture fund investing in the world's most ruthlessly iterative founders, helping its limited partners to find founders who are solving the world's most dynamic problems, teams that excel in mastering the idea maze, teams moving with a rapid, iterative velocity and demonstrating radical resourcefulness. Shore Capital doesn't just write checks, though. They become fractional co-founders when needed, offering strategic support, high-leverage relationship development, and a deep commitment to the long-term success of their portfolio companies. If you are a ruthlessly iterative founder with a bold vision or a limited investor seeking sustained access to the brightest, big thinkers of our time, Shore Capital wants to meet you. So visit shorecapital.notion.site to learn more.
All right, there's a lot going on there on campus based on what you said. So I in this next question, I want to kind of make sure we highlight some of the things, right? So this is a little bit, you can tell us a little bit about like programs and services. What do you do? Who do you serve? Kind of a little bit of like the commercial for not just the Greif Center, but USC. So we've talked about the Greif Center for Entrepreneurial Studies. I've heard you just mention already the Blackstone Launchpad. I saw that in the materials when I was doing my research. You just mentioned the Marshall School of Business, right? So help us understand like all the different programs, names, and offerings, and then we can dive down a little bit more into like more specific things that you're doing.
So I'm not gonna lie, just like the networking and the industry is a little fragmented. USC is doing its best to hold it all together because we have so many resources. But first, I'll start with the graduate school, the Marshall Business School. That's really where that's the central hub of Greif, where we come out of, and that's where Greif really just partners with the engineering school of Viterbi, partners with USC TechStars, partners with the Neely Institute for Research. There are and even we partner with the PhD students and things like that. So really it's thinking about, well, what resource best fits you and what path are you on? Are you on a venture backable path? Are you on a social impact path? Are you on a creativity path, right? Thinking about that first, and then thinking about what do you specifically need, right? Like, is it ideation? So the Launchpad is where you come. We've rebranded from Blackstone Launchpad to Greif Launchpad.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Sorry.
It's new. But Blackstone internships are still available to all of our USC students. So that's ideation. But then, maybe you need some formation. You can go to our incubator or our law clinic from the Gold School, or maybe you need to talk to our EIR, our experts in residence, spanning from AI LA Mr. himself on our thing to Dominique Aubrey, right? We have such great experts in residence that come and mentor the students. But then moving forward, because everybody's talking about money, right? So we support all entrepreneurial organizations here on campus, and we fund their demo day as
Wow.
well. Yeah, I'm like, that's a big one. As well as we have our own pitch competitions and our own demo days. And last year we gave out a record almost $400,000 to student-led
Holy cow.
entrepreneurs. And that's almost 10,000 students just going through our programming.
And that was the next thing I was going to ask you. Like how many, like kind of big numbers, like how many people do we serve on a regular?
So when I started this, they said that 10 people a month came. Now I got at least 20 people a day coming through interested in entrepreneurship. I just had my welcome back party. Almost 200 people came. The appetite is so big. We launched Origin Weekend with the engineering school, which is a 5-day hackathon for students. Almost 300 students came to that. At the same time, we had an entrepreneurship expo. Almost 300 students came to that. So the appetite is so insatiable for this. So it's like, it's good that we have this USC huge microcosm of things. But one thing I encourage students to do is go out into LA.
Right.
All you have to do is go on LinkedIn and press USC in whatever you're interested in. And that person is more likely to talk to you than not. So,
awesome.
So many students are going through our programming, and we're just trying to figure out how we can best support them. And yes, it's always looking like funding. We're always going to have that, but it's ideation, it's formulation, getting your foundation right, so we can be that actual launch pad, not just in theory, but in practice.
Oh, that's amazing. And it's so like clearly based on now a couple stories you've shared already, like it's so deeply tied to Los Angeles as a whole, right? I mean, and that kind of begs my next question, right? Like, I mean, it's been a tough like stretch recently. Like 2025 has been insane. I mean, like if I had a 2025 long LA t-shirt, it would probably have to be like upside down, right? I mean, we're recovering from the pandemic. We're now just in the early months of navigating our way out of the wildfires, which were right. In January, we're finding our way now through, although it seems like it's calmed down a little in August and September, but through this unnecessary assault on our city and our immigrant communities by our federal government. And along the way, by the way, on the good news tip, like, right, we're also preparing to host the Olympics in 3 years, the World Cup next summer, the Super Bowl in like a year and a half. So I'm curious, like when it comes to both recovery from some of our biggest challenges that we are or have faced, and then when it comes to like preparation for some of these global events that we are going to host soon, where does USC and the Greif Center fit in the middle of all that? Like, are there I mean, you can't talk about private secret things yet. That's okay. But like, are there things where the Greif Center leadership or your team are starting to think about like, okay, maybe we could do some things in collaboration with the recovery programs. Maybe we could work with some of the organizations in the community that are talking about how we could rebuild or build new housing better. Maybe we could talk about how we support our immigrant communities, or hey, you know what? Greif Center is going to make sure we're attached to the Olympics, or we're attached to, like, are there those types of things going on? Does the leadership of the entrepreneurial part of USC kind of try and attach itself to the practical future of LA?
I love that you asked that, because I went to Columbia in New York City, but I'm from Inglewood. So the LA means so much to me. I'm also always like, how do I even put it into words? But for me, it is my passion for LA has always been tied to entrepreneurship, and I really see that happening at USC. I can't say it enough how we are really trying to prepare our students to impact real world problems, and that starts in LA. that starts on Figueroa. That starts on Western.
Always does. Always does. There's an old saying way before you were ever born and before I was born, like 100-year-old saying. It used to say, so goes California, so goes the nation, or as goes California, so goes the nation. And for about 100 years, the perception was that saying only implied like all the good things. Like, so,
Right.
when all the cool, great things are invented, they always start in California and then they eventually go the rest of the country. And I like to now point out to people that what it really always has meant is that literally everything that eventually finds its way into the rest of the United States starts here, both good and bad. So
Yeah.
the challenge is like, so we've been on the front end. This is a terrible example, but it's the facts, right? Like, we've been on the front end of homelessness crisis and how it relates to housing and
Right.
affordability in the
Right.
country. But that doesn't mean like we're the only people that are dealing with it.
Right.
We were just first, and we're so big that we have the most, like right up there with New York, right? But like now you get it in Phoenix and Vermont and Ohio and Texas and everywhere else, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but we're also, to your point, that means we face the problems first.
Right.
And so then we spend a lot of energy trying to solve the problems.
And
right. And then those solutions go and wind up migrating to the rest of the country.
all over.
So
And
to your point, right, it literally does. The future of what goes on Main Street in Ohio actually starts on Figueroa or Slauson or La Brea, right?
No, literally. And so one thing that the Greif Center has been really just intentional about is we just pulled in the Brittingham Social Enterprise Lab into our department. And so that means that we have a whole nother arm of social impact and social enterprise experts that support our community. We just participated in the Holt Prize. It's the world's largest pitch competition for $1 million in social impact. And actually, out of 15,000 applications, we just had a company go to top 8. So
Nice.
everything that we're doing, and honestly, my work, I'm like, I center like the companies that are solving problems that affect my community. And that's my thesis as an investor. I'm always like, I invest at the intersection because I am at the intersection, whatever intersection that is at that given time, sure. But that's how I see it. And that's really the philosophy I bring.
No, I love that. Funny side story, quick, that you'll get a kick out of this. I was once, I think it was 2018, I was actually a judge in the finals of the Holt Prize. That year, they held it in Monterrey in Mexico.
Yeah.
In partnership with the biggest private university in Mexico at the time. But yeah, so I got to meet the founding team from
My
Holt.
goodness.
And so I totally understand exactly what's going on with that. That's an incredible program, and I love that it has sustained itself over the years. So along the lines, kind of what you just said, and this is going to transition us to start talking a little bit more about some of the other work you do beyond just your work at USC. But I mean, you literally, in both your pitch coach work and the work you're doing through USC, you just said it, like you're seeing like hundreds, if not thousands, of young aspiring entrepreneurs, right? And so I'm curious if you could give us some insights, like, is a lot of what they're working on just kind of Me Too, copycat, like I'm going to invent the newest dating site, or I'm going to invent the newest dog walking app or food delivery service? Or are you seeing some other really interesting like product or service ideas and trends that we might not be seeing? Like, I would love if you could give us like maybe a top 3, 4 kind of like, oh, Rob, we're seeing like solutions for this market and for this and for this.
So look, I'm not going to be all, hoity-toity about everything, because at the end of the day, it's 50-50. I see my
Fair
share
enough.
of the fashion.
Thank you for not bullshitting. Like, there's copycatters out there. That's why I asked.
I'm like, I see my share of water bottle, fashion, dating sites, meetups, tennis, blah, 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 all of those, That's what they see what they do, right? Like,
sure.
If you can't find an outfit to your sorority party, that's a real problem for you.
So you're going to try and figure out a way to solve it. Yeah.
And then for me, it's my job to go, well, there aren't any fast fashion or just easy clothing stores in their exact neighborhood, right? So that's like part of it, right? Like, yeah, you got this idea, it's a little funny, but how can we make this work? How can I get you to see the greater vision? right? So I'm going to say that's half of it. But the other half, no, it's like we have people targeting the emissions in cement, making a new formula for cement. We have people thinking about sustainable dentistry, where taking the dental practices of across the world to over here in a modern way. We got people who are like, my feet hurt, and I'm trying to make a shoe that don't make my feet hurt. You know? So, but also, you know, we really do focus on healthcare in a different way here. I think, you know, LA, we have um our unfair advantage because we are very health oriented. So I see like that being a huge, huge thing. And then on the 5%, because what's interesting about this job is that I'm no longer thinking about it from a venture capital perspective, right? I'm not looking for my needle in a haystack. In entrepreneurship, I'm trying to make every idea work. So we do got that 10% of physical retail businesses and CPG businesses. So we have to think about how to support them as well.
Awesome.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at eSudo. You know, running any business, but especially a law firm, means balancing a lot. And technology, frankly, shouldn't be a headache. eSudo makes information technology and cybersecurity simple for law firms large or small. With over 20 years of experience, they specialize in everything from Microsoft 365 management to advanced cybersecurity solutions. They help you to stay ahead of threats, manage your data securely, and keep your tech running smoothly so that you can focus on what matters most, your clients. eSudo understands the legal industry's unique needs, offering tailored solutions to ensure that your firm is always in compliance and always protected. Are you ready to upgrade your firm's technology or get help with your questions? Visit esudo.com.
That's the best answer possible. And thank you for not bullshitting our audience, right? Because like we know the reason I asked the question is because we know that the Me Too, the copycats, the I'm going to invent a better pickleball court, right? Kind of, we know that stuff exists, right?
And it should. We're inventing the world we want to see. And
100%. I love that.
I tell my students, I'm like, I meet literally thousands of students all the time. And I'm like, the easiest example I use is every morning I'm trying to figure out which product to use on my baby hair. Is it popping today? I don't know. But the fact that I'm still looking for a baby hair solution,
right?
My whole life. This is,
I mean, I'm way older than you, and obviously I don't have the same baby hair problems that you do. But I can tell you, having grown up in a pretty diverse community back home in Chicago, and then always everywhere I lived, like the fact that I'm 57 years old and like that folks in your community are still looking for better hair care / skincare products is like, what the hell? Like, why have we not like just like mastered those markets yet and just made this a non-talk? Why am I still talking about this when I had friends in the 1980s who were talking about these exact
same problems? So right? I'm like, innovation is a conversation. Ooh, no, that was 100%, a good one.
That's right. Yes. I mean, it also speaks to the importance, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, but like it also speaks to the critical importance of diversity of ideas and diversity of founders, diversity of entrepreneurs, teams, right? Because if you're solving for those things that exist in your own lives or your own worlds, like that, like the better person to solve for that in that community is you, not me. Right. I mean, and so that's just a fact of entrepreneurship. So thank you for shedding some light on that. All right. So one last fun question before we cut over and start talking about your storytelling training and everything I want to really unpack. But so bottom line, like who has better entrepreneurship programs, USC or UCLA?
Oh my goodness. Y'all always love to do this.
I'm stirring it up.
And it's funny because I just got out of a faculty meeting and we all have our different strengths.
Thank you. You're good. See, that's
like,
good.
What? You don't pit two baddies against each other. Like, it's fun. I'm expecting your audience at Tech Week then, since we having this conversation. USC and UCLA have a joint event during Tech Week. So I'm like,
that's awesome.
We collaborate.
I love that. I mean, and I love Trisha Helmadaris and all that they're doing in
Yeah.
their programs. Like you two are both like anchor rock stars on just different neighborhoods in town. Like, but we need it all. It was just that was an obvious cheap podcaster question to ask. So thank you for indulging my bad dad joke humor. All right. So we talked about in the intro your work as a pitch coach via your own consultancy. Like, what got you started in that work? And what do you love the most about it?
That's a good question. So, I mean, the second one, what do I love?
Yeah.
But I'll start with how I got into it. So, I mean, I was the youngest person at the VC firm with all these titans. And I just was like, well, what am I going to be good at? And throughout my college career, I had focused on fundraising, and my first boss, who is Natalie Molina Nino, and she was running what she won't call a social impact VC firm, but that's what we were essentially doing. And she was just like, people make money off of this, Amiah. Like, you're really good at it. I don't know why you just don't make this your job. And I was like,
okay,
this is a job?
Right.
I can eat. I'm a former foster youth, so I got into college, on a full scholarship. I raised money to go to everywhere I needed to go, and I did that. So I was just like, oh, say no more. But then when I got into the industry, and I still felt like, okay, but what do I have to give to it? And I'm seeing all these founders pitch over and over again, and it's literally 1 minute, and it's $1 million on the line, and you got to get it. You have to. And I've seen so many founders just not say the right words or not saying in the right order. So then I went to go get my master's in industrial and organizational psychology, because I didn't know if it was because I was a Black girl and I was the youngest on the team. I didn't know if it's because of what I was saying or how I was saying. I didn't know what it was what was going on. So I was like, let me go back to school so I can really perfect this coaching, because the founders just need it. Like, I'm like, so many passes could have not gone that way if they just didn't say certain words. So that's really how I got started in it. And what keeps me sustained and what I love about it is, to this day, I just be like, wow, like, you would have gotten passed on if you didn't talk to me.
Wow.
And I'm not
And that's
sure,
powerful, because that's life changing. It doesn't matter if they raise money or win the
you
thing or
know,
whatever, but it's life changing because at some point in that person's career path, life, whatever they wind up doing for the next 60 years of their existence, like, they're going to have to deploy the ability to tell their own story, to represent themselves, to advocate for themselves. And if you gave them that, like, hey man, you literally wouldn't have gotten into this if I hadn't helped you, you've given them a skill for life.
and I'm like, people go to my workshops and conferences and they be like, I've paid all this money, or I went to Harvard and da da da, and nobody ever said it like this, or it wasn't clear, or I still walked out of their workshops confused, right? So that's what gives me like the love for it today, is like, I
love that.
really like, I'm uniquely positioned to do this. But for a long time, I just was like, this isn't a real skill. Like, I don't know. I just was just like, it's not that hard, but it
For
is
you,
difficult. I know,
maybe,
right? I'm like,
right?
but I've been doing it my whole life. So I'm
Right.
like, I didn't realize that. So it, like, kind of getting back to that love of it, it really helps me to be like, no, like, I need to show up,
Love
because
that.
I have to tell them, because VC is PR. They're not going to tell you that you did bad, or not did bad, but this is what you could have did better. They're going to say, thank you so much. I'll see you next week, or
Right.
I'll hit you when I'm ready. Right.
Yeah.
For me,
Not a feedback intensive industry.
it's not. So for me, I had to learn how to translate that feedback. And in my life, that's been such a huge, like, unique value proposition for my clients, because they just simply don't know what the words mean. And there's
It's
no
incredible.
book for that, like venture deals, which you should read venture deals, right?
Yeah.
But, after that, what happens?
No, and there is something to the human delivery of skills, right? I mean, you took, as I'm listening to your story there, like, you took grit that, like, life forced upon you, that you had to figure out how to survive and advocate for yourself. You turned that into, or discovered as you got older, that was a gift. like that gritty thing that taught you how to advocate for yourself actually became a gift. And then now the later arc of your story as you go to graduate school, and to me, that's just, you're professionalizing it into a skill. Right. So I often talk, very humbly, I say this, like I often talk about in my own life experiences, very different than yours, but I was gifted. I was fortunate enough to be kind of just trained and forced almost really against my will when I was a kid in college and college age by my dad to learn how to do this, to learn how to become a communicator and a storyteller. Right. And then a professional path kind of emerged from that. But I used to say, like, it was like a gift that I got. Right. My old man just made me learn how to do this stuff in a very scientific way. And then, yes, the gift of my personality, et cetera, my likability, my blah, 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 that I always attribute to my mom. Right. And
Same.
But as I've gotten
mom.
right. But as I've gotten older, I've learned now this is 40 years, 35, 40 years of development. Right now I can say, like, this is a skill. Right. And it's a skill that you got to sharpen. So that's awesome. I have to give you a quick aside. This is about you, not about me, but this story is just too good to pass up because I did not know something about what you just described to me in your background. This is why you get asked the question, because sometimes you never know the answer. I did not know that Natalie was your first boss.
Oh, yeah. She made me into the boss I am today.
Okay. So first of all, she is like on my life list of, I've someday got to get her on the podcast. But here's why, which, by the way, now is going to be significantly easier that I've had you on the podcast. But like, here's the funny story behind why. So she was just like a Twitter friend when Twitter used to be a thing, right? And we were connected there, and we had become connected on Twitter and like would DM each other every once in a while about entrepreneurial stuff because I had read her book. And so then I DM'd her, I think, like initially just saying like, hey, I read your book. Like, wow, like this is maybe the most important work in entrepreneurship that I've heard. At that time, like whenever this was 8-10 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
And I went on, it was about the time that I had moved and was living and working, building our former business in South America in the entrepreneurship world. And I went on for a period of, I think I kept doing this up until about like 2022. I would just randomly a couple times a year buy an extra copy of that book and just gift it to some entrepreneur in my life. And then I went back and I told Natalie about that. I was like, by the way, like I've bought probably 35 or 40 copies of your book over the years. And then I just gift them out mostly to like underrepresented women, women of color, like people who I knew the story would resonate with. And so fast forward, long story short, very kind gesture by her, which ultimately cemented her in my heart. So 2021, when we were still being pretty diligent about pandemic stuff, whereas the rest of the country was pretending it wasn't a thing anymore. And she was coming to town because at the time her mom was still living out here. She was coming to town and she was going to host she had rented a theater at the Century City Mall, and she was going to close out the theater to be COVID safe. And she was going to host a private screening of the Into the Heights, the movie about right. And so she had like an invite only list of like mostly her family and cousins and friends. And then like really she was like, hey, if you and your daughter, she knew how close I was with my daughter, still am. She's like, if you and your daughter are in LA and you're both vaccinated and you feel it would be safe and I would love to meet you in person finally and like have you guys enjoy this screening of the film. And we were like, sign us up. Right. And it's still like one of my favorite pictures I have of me and my daughter and anybody. And it's like, we had an amazing time. It was a lovely we met her and it was like an instant hug. It was like we had known each other in real life or in person.
Right.
Forever. So I had no idea that you had a connection to her. That is incredible.
I'm actually thanked in the book too. So I'm like, literally.
So I'm listening to you and I didn't even know it was you then.
I love this. And she doesn't get enough shout outs. So I'm like,
you know, what's really funny that you even mentioned this because we're connected on social media. And so I follow when she lost her dog, like one of the two dogs.
I used to walk.
Right. So I sent her messages about like that and stuff like that. But it was really interesting. Just a couple of days ago on a walk, I walked past a place in East Hollywood that was like an Ecuadorian restaurant. Right. And so it immediately, for whatever reason, I just started thinking about her. And I have an instinct, and I'm now going to definitely do this because of this conversation. But I had an instinct that night, just a couple of days ago, I feel like I need to like ping her. I need to reach out and just ask her how she's doing. I'm sure she's fine and fabulous and life is great, but also just I haven't talked to her in a while. Like, and I just want to say hi and see how she is.
And this is that relationship building I really try to zero in on my students with. Like, I know it's scary. I know it's a quote unquote stranger, but in 10 years, is that still going to be a stranger? Just
Right.
because you reached out on Twitter and you're like making conversation and you're sharing
100%.
your passion, and now we have all these great connections. And then another thing I always tell my clients, see, I usually, like, I don't know, I name drop, but I also went to Columbia, so I'm like, I know I can name drop too much.
Right.
So, but it's like important to name drop, right, in this industry, because it shows how connected we really are and how our world isn't that big, right? So I love that story, and it is really a testament to her greatness and
Yeah.
her kindness, really, you know.
100%. No, 100%. And I'll double down for those that are listening and are learning from you at the Greif Center. There are all the students that are, how do I build relationships or how do I network? I would say stop asking how you network and start asking how you build relationships. And the truth is, and I say this now, especially now, 5 years post pandemic, I can say this with absolute certainty and evidence. Like, you can develop real, meaningful human relationships digitally.
Yeah.
Like, you have to work at it. You have to use all of these tools that are available to us, but like there are more tools available. It's 100% possible. And then yes, some of those may transition into also in real life physical relationships, and that's amazing. Some may never, and they can still just be as strong as ever. So that it's not this like, oh, there's only one way or the other. No. It's a modern world we live in. And so we can be connected to and deeply care about and have people care about us even across all kinds of distances and spans of time. So a quick question before we get off the storytelling topic. I'm curious, again, you have your individual practice and the work that you do and your philosophies and training, and then you work inside of a bigger environment where you see like a lot wider range of people. What are we doing as an industry, like as an entrepreneurial industry? Like, what are we not doing well? Like, what are we doing poorly when it comes to preparing people to tell their best stories? Obviously, this will be what you're not doing well because you're doing it well, right? But like the industry as a whole still isn't doing it well. And that in part is why you need to exist.
Right. Great question. My two things is it's like centered around being direct and clear and specific. Right? Like in a world where like there's 55,000 bread companies, like how are you being specific and direct, right? Like I'm always zeroing in. I don't know if it's my like Barnard training, but it's like, why do I care about this? What are you saying to make me care? Do you have enough stamina to withhold me asking you that question? Because that's an annoying question, right? But it also signals, well, you're not telling me something. And did you pick up on that? So that means you're being too vague. So I just think the overall vagueness in the industry is why many brands and many companies come and go, because I can get the same product, good or service at 35,000 different places, and I'm choosing based off of my own priorities. So if you don't intimately know your customer, if your go-to-market strategy is not rock solid and specific, I'm over the whole concept. It don't matter if it's from deep tech or from nails.
I love
So
that. Specificity.
That's my first thing. Yeah. And then secondly is the diversity aspects. Like I show up sometimes literally because I know I don't want the picture to have all white people in it. Like period. Like I know I'm gonna be the darkest person in the picture. And just for me to be that little chocolate chip in the picture, like, and it the industry right now is mirrors VC to be like, oh, it's a meritocracy, but that's such a lie because there's so much money out there. So it's like, are we talking about all of the resources and opportunities with all of the groups that we're in? I'm not saying that out of the 10 events, half of them aren't homogenous, but I'm spreading the same information throughout all of the events I go to, whether that is the industry event with the biggest VC to the smallest accelerator that nobody really knows about yet, but that's just getting popping, right? So just sharing it, and not only just diversity in like race, but in thought and privilege and all things, because LA is so collaborative and we have such a great ecosystem, but I'm still like, it needs to be represented in entrepreneurship as a whole across the county.
We are so grateful to be supported by sponsors like our friends at Plain Text Capital. You know, investing in Web3 and cryptocurrencies isn't about jumping on the latest trends. It's about understanding where the market is headed and why. Plain Text Capital is a digital asset investment firm focused on long-term strategies backed by deep research, backing the best Web3 companies and protocols, and investing in the newest asset classes of the future. They believe that Web3 crypto will drive digital innovation for decades to come, creating significant value for investors. In fact, their team of highly skilled professionals work with institutions and serious individual investors who want clarity in a space full of hype and noise. So if you're looking to cut through the chaos and invest with purpose, Plain Text Capital brings a disciplined, high conviction approach to investing. You can learn more and meet the team at plaintextcapital.com.
All right, you're like a cheat code of a guest for podcasters because you literally just set me up for the next question I was going to ask anyway. So now I'm going to ask it in a slightly different way. Like, why is thank you for the 2 points related to what we don't do well in entrepreneurial storytelling. That was great. Thank you. But let's pull that last one into this question, this idea of the importance of diversity. Why is it so important that any entrepreneurial economy like ours here in Los Angeles truly represent and see everyone in every neighborhood and how those people bring their lived experiences to what you do? Like, why is that so important?
At the end of the day, I'm a venture capitalist. I'm trying to make as much money as possible. Diverse teams make more money. Mixed gender teams make more money. That's research. That's data. I don't got to tell you the source. You Google it yourself, audience. But that's the T. Secondly, I believe I could find the next unicorn in South LA and East LA, somewhere where they over there trying to figure out surviving. And next thing you know, just like me, I grew up around the corner from SpaceX. So I'm like, all I know is I'm trying to figure out what they doing over there and how they making money and how they getting spaceships off the ground, right? So I know that there's some person in our community who is thinking the same thing and who just needs an opportunity, right? So it's a literal matter of making our ecosystem and our economic development mirror what it actually looks like in LA, but also mirror the world that we want it to look like, right?
Thank
Like,
you.
I'm not saying that it's going to be perfect, but am I going to keep showing up and being a little chocolate chip in the picture? So
Yep.
maybe there's 10 more next time or 30 more. And then that is not just chocolate chip, but it's a birthday cake sprinkle.
Well,
That's what I'm trying to see.
we're gonna kill these baking metaphors. I was trying to anticipate, like, my brain. I was like, is she gonna go with, like, we're gonna go from chocolate chip sprinkles to like full on brownies, right? And I was like, that might work too, right? Like, that's
Your mind, the innovation. See, that's why we got to talk to each other.
love that. Okay, all right, you're the best. All right, so I've got one last question before we get to our last closing question segment. And this question is like kind of deeply personal. I'm wearing the shirt today super proudly. I pulled it out of my little closet to put it on just to as an homage and as a testament to you, because you know, when I talk about, or like when my buddy Dave Whalen, the life sciences world here, like when we talk about hashtag long LA, like honestly, like on the surface, it's a techie thing, but it's really not. And it really, for me, it hasn't been for a long time. It's
Right.
really like, I might as well say like hashtag long Amiah, hashtag long, you know, my folks at Slauson, hashtag long the Grid 110 people, hashtag long Expo Park, hashtag long Limer Park, right? Like,
And when you see long LA, that's what I see. I'm long on the resources, the opportunities, the people that makes our ecosystem just so vibrant and helpful and serious.
Yeah.
Like,
So, all right. So
we know what we're doing out here.
that's my last question of the conversation is Yesterday was our 244th birthday as a city.
Happy
right?
Virgo birthday.
Right. Which makes LA literally only 5 years younger than the United States. Right. So in 1776, when the old dudes were writing out our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, which by the way, today we're fighting for, like tooth and nail to preserve, right? To preserve, to lean on. While that was going on, 5 years later, 40 families, by the way, mostly indigenous, brown-skinned, African, Pan-African, Caribbean families, people of color, were down there in the center of our city, starting our city, which is now what it is today. What is it, in your humble opinion, as a proud Inglewood girl and a proud child of LA, what is it that makes our city so unique? And what do you hope for our city for the next 25 to 50 years?
So I'm like, I gotta double down. I always say we're like the TLC Crazy Sexy Cool album. Like LA brings the cool factor every time. It is for me, collaboration is so sexy because it's so smooth. Like it's always somebody doing an event with somebody, or our audience are cross promoting, or I'm going to this happy hour next, and then everybody else going to the next happy hour, right? So we always are collaborative. But I think that our ecosystem is so creative. I would say like that is, and that is our main thing. And we know what we're good at. Like we do what we do, and everybody else does what they do, and it's easy to get, and people come to LA and they get, distracted. It's a lot going on. So I'm like, it's easy to do all that. But I think the LA, like the uniqueness is like, at the end of the day, we knew, is how it's going, and we just got to keep on doing what we do best. and everything is going to come back.
I love that.
And then what I think about the future, it's hard to say. It's hard to say in this climate.
So let me ask you this way, like let's frame it. What do you hope for? Not so much like predict, right? Because predicting is impossible in today's environment, right? Like you said. But what's your hope for? Not what you can control, but what's your hope? You could say like, this is how I want to see my city evolve over the next 25 to 50 years. This is what I'd like us to look like. And I say this not to be dark and macabre, but like at the end of Rob's life, I'd like it to look, and I'd like us to have gotten to this.
For me, I just want to have everybody to have a piece of the pie that they want. And they can identify it. So that means like the Maslow hierarchy is like, is figured out, because you have to be free to dream, right? So thinking about what piece of the pie they want, and having the resources to actually go after it. And one thing that I'm really huge on is the sustainability factor of it, because LA has such great family-owned businesses that I just, and this economy right now is just like, they just have been saying goodbye too often, So I'm like, I want to see the companies sustain themselves after the second generation, after the third generation. So we have another 200 years of LA.
I love that. And boy, if it's not absolutely what we talked about before, talk about like a leading indicator, because if we do what you just described in addressing some of the sustainability issues, some of the inequality issues, if we keep leaning into the things that we're naturally good at, right? Creativity, collaboration, diversity of everything, right? Like, guess what? Those are the same problems that this thing called the United States of America are facing. And so if we start to solve for them here in the next 25 to 50 years, we're going to wind up still being the place that, as goes California, so goes the nation. Right?
Yes.
100% believe that. Okay. We could literally talk all day. We could turn this into the longest we could be like a Joe Rogan podcast, do like 7 hours of this, which would be absolutely enjoyable. But last question, and I want to take you back to your storytelling skills, because this is kind of more of like an actionable bullet point type of answer. For our entrepreneurs that are listening, I don't care level of experience or age or whatever, but for the entrepreneurs that are listening, what are the two or three most important elements that every entrepreneur has to include in how they tell their story to make sure that they connect with their audience? So what are the 2 or 3 most important elements that every entrepreneur's story has to include?
Okay, I got 3. Listen up, audience. First, one-line description. 5 words or less. If you go on the elevator and Mark Cuban hops in, you think he going to the 5th floor? No, he going to the 3rd floor. We need a one-line description, easy and clean. Second, the problem slide has been the problem slide, y'all. So I want you to write down your problem statements, because those problem statements, they don't have no numbers in them. I'm reviewing applications right now for a pitch competition. Problem statements need a number. You need to provide me data. So give me 10 problem statements. Look up the corresponding data requirements. See how that 3 of those data facts go into your natural story. And then third, highlighting the specificity, unique value propositions. 3 things that you do better, faster, different, more innovative than everybody else. So you go, I made up this fake company. I go, hi, my name is Amiah. I'm CEO of Juicy. It's a SaaS hardware juicing company. We're solving the over $600 billion of food that's just wasted every day. Our hardware is ergonomic, easy to use, and the only fully digital product on the market. I'd love for you to join us.
Boom.
Mark has got out the elevator.
And he's
call me back.
Yeah, exactly. He's compelled. He's able to see through to your energy and your personality because he doesn't get distracted by your mealy mouth trying to describe what you do because you don't think about it, right? You weren't prepared. Yeah, that's amen. Amen, Sister Amiah.
I love it.
That is the best 3 bits of advice about storytelling I've heard in a long time. I absolutely love it. This was an absolute pleasure. Lucky for us, like those that will listen to this some days and weeks in the future, they won't know that this is how we basically ended our Friday afternoon in early September. So this is the best way to end a Friday afternoon. I pestered you on getting on the show for, maybe 2 years, but like 1.5 years probably at least, right? But that's okay. That persistence. My dad used to say 3 Ps, polite, professional, persistence, right? And I did it because I absolutely knew this was the conversation we were going to have. And the selfish part of me that does this for the living now does it because I get to have these conversations with incredibly bright, talented, passionate people like you, right? And so who wouldn't push to have this conversation for 1.5 years if I knew that this is how it was going to result? And I did. So thank you, thank you, thank you. How can people who are listening, watching on YouTube, whatever, how can they find you and or follow you on socials if you want them to connect with you, etc.? And then also if there are any socials or website addresses or emails related to the Greif Center that we should give people access to as well.
Yes, quick and easy. You can find me on Twitter at Amiah Sheppard, at AMIAHSHEP. And then I would love for you all to follow USC Entrepreneurship. If you went to USC, if you work at USC, or if you currently go to USC, you can follow us on Instagram at USC_entrepreneurship, and you'll find links in our link in bio to our events. We have over 60 events this semester. We have signups for our newsletter and all the funding information that we are putting out. So love for you all to follow us at USC_entrepreneurship on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This was a blast, buddy. Thanks. You're the best. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. You're the best, Rob. Thank you again to you and your team.
My pleasure. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was recorded here in Los Angeles and produced by the incomparable Deanna Bernal in Mexico City. We can only grow this show by you listening and sharing the show with friends. So please find, follow, subscribe, and share our audio-only show on Spotify, Apple, or via any other popular podcasting platforms, as well as find the video version of our show now available on our YouTube channel over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And of course, you can follow along on our various social media platforms for fun and informative clips and content at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, wherever you can find us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at I Am Rob Ryan on just about any social media platform. Gracias, thank you, and have an awesome day.